Right, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Hope you can hear me, hope the mics are up. Thanks for packing in for what should be the star session of the day. I'm Martin Wynne-Griffith, former head of the Enterprise Directorate in the new Department of Business Innovation and Skills, but I'm now doing a different job, but I called back for this assignment. Really delighted to welcome Sir Alan today, and more about him later, and also Bob Jones from Business Link in Kent. I want to be clear about one thing. The purpose of today is to get our heads around why small businesses are really important to the economy, to our society, and actually to you. Whatever job you're doing in the civil service, I want you to stretch your brains today and think about why small businesses matter to you. That's why we're here. We are not here to ask Sir Alan about The Apprentice or football. Okay, we're not here to ask him why Katie was fired or why Berbatov was sold. Okay, and I'm really serious about that because we've got a serious job to do today, and I shall guillotine anyone who attempts to wind us up. We're also going to finish promptly at 3:45 so that those of us who are interested in getting across to see Gus and Peter Jones can do so. And I trust you've all switched your phones off. Good. So, let's be clear about the importance of small businesses to the economy. Firstly, there are over 4.5 million businesses in this country, of which 99.9% are defined as small businesses. These businesses employ more than half those people employed in the private sector, and they're responsible for more than half of the country's gross domestic product. So this is a hugely important sector for the economy and its impact on society as well. The sort of things that government can do well is to invent systems and frameworks through which we can regulate intelligently, not stupidly. We can provide information and support that's authoritative and compelling. That means that businesses are better informed and perhaps more compliant, those of you that are legislators, so that they perform better and so they contribute better to the growth of productivity and growth of the economy. The other thing we can do as a government is fund the support and the promotion of a more enterprising culture in this country, and we've actually done quite a bit about that, and Sir Alan joining as an advisor to the government is all part of that mission. So with no more ado, what I'm first going to do is turn to Bob Jones here, who's the Chief Executive of Business Link in Kent. He's going to tell you a little bit about Business Link, and then we're going to get going with Sir Alan. Bob.
Thanks very much, Martin. First of all, thanks very much for inviting me along today. I'm absolutely thrilled that the Business Link brand has this pulling power.
Nice.
No, seriously, it's great to be sharing a platform with Sir Alan because he has done so much to put business and enterprise on the agenda across the community, and particularly from our perspective with aspiring entrepreneurs and young people. They really relate to role models that they see and can think, actually, I can do that, and that's fantastic. A little bit about my background. I'm Chief Executive of Business Support Kent, CIC, Community Interest Company, which is a social enterprise operating across Kent and Medway, and we run the Business Link contract across that county with some 55,000 businesses who are our clients. My personal background is that my interest in business started when I was 8, and my dad bought a corner shop in London, 593 Garrett Lane Quality Foods. And I worked there till I was 18, on the till and driving the vans and all that when I was old enough. And that was my experience of really living with an SME owner-manager. I then went on to spend quite a few years, some 27 years at Marks & Spencer, working as a senior manager. I then went and worked in a school, a couple of years in university, and then the last number of years have been really supporting small, medium enterprises across Kent and across Medway and across the wider South East. And it is a real passion of ours. It's what we do, it's why we get out of bed in the morning. We want to give those businesses every support. What does Business Link actually do? There are two levels of Business Link. The first one is the website. The businesslink.gov website is one of the best websites in the world for business support, if not the best. And I think we should be rightly proud of it. That's the online service. The offline service is that right the way across England, There are advisors offering support to businesses in a whole variety of ways, from start-up workshops for aspiring entrepreneurs to begin their enterprises, information for people who just want to touch base and get on with it. And then there's something that we call an intensive assistance programme, which is delivered to some 5% of businesses in England, which is a 2-hour business review with an action plan for them to then initiate action to grow, develop and their business and fulfil their dreams. So we're absolutely thrilled to be part of this event today. We're passionate about Business Link, we're passionate about engaging with you to understand what Business Link can do, not only for the SMEs who are our clients, but also for you who are our partners in making sure that the small business voice and the enterprise that they represent is absolutely at the heart of government.
Brilliant, thank you. Now, I happen to know that whilst Bob was on holiday last week, a certain Sir Alan went to visit his operation in Kent. And so my first question, of course, is what did you make of it all?
Well, it's the first of 13 that I'm going to visit. I'm going to visit another 2 next week. One should never form an opinion on first impressions.
But if it's good, you can.
Well, maybe on the 13th visit I'll be able to find out whether your one was the best one or not. But the point is, it was quite impressive. But rather than take an overall view at the moment on the effectiveness of that one enterprise there, one has to see the rest of them. But it was quite an eye-opener. I do agree with you know, the website is very, very informative. A little bit complex as far as I was concerned. So, and I'm going to sit down and have a better look at it. But a good eye opener to the fact that these business links are around. And I sat in on a few calls with one of your advisors on the phone there. In particular, there was one gentleman that was made redundant, and he was a web designer, and he wanted to know about how to, you know, how he should move forward on web designing. So I was earwigging in on this phone call and interrupting your advisor all the time, as you can imagine.
He knew you were earwigging.
He didn't know I was earwigging. The guy at the other end receiving the advice must have thought he'd hit upon Bill Gates by the time he finished. And it was quite interesting. So yes, it's very good. And while we were there, we received lots of calls coming in from businesses asking for information. So quite a good eye-opener, and I'll be able to report far more once I've completed the rest of the visits.
Just while I'm on business, hands up anyone who works for Business Link or near Business Link, or 1, 2, any more than 2? 1. Okay, fine, good. So we've got a diverse audience today. I mean, one of the things that Business Link's been trying to make clear to everyone in the civil service is that it's there as the channel to market, the channel, if you like, to small businesses. So why wouldn't you use it? So, you know, if somebody is working in, I don't know, Department of Work and Pensions, why wouldn't you use it as the place to get to an SME audience? I mean, we continually have a trouble in Whitehall kind of getting policy folk to adopt this, what is now government policy, that this is the single access channel. But how does it feel for you on the ground?
Well, for us, we're passionate about what we do, but we're also passionate about you becoming passionate about what we do. And I've come up a couple of times to the Department of Business and done presentations, and 1 or 2 of you in the room may have been at those. And I've always brought a business with me, because just having me there is great, and I will say this, won't I, because, you know, we run the service. But actually, we need to make sure that you're exposed to real businesses, and real businesses are exposed to you, and it becomes a whole team effort to get UK PLC up and running, as opposed to a bit of a battle. And I've got sort of 2 strap lines that I always say to my team. The first one is that we are commercial animals in government service. That's what we are. We are commercial animals in government service. We have to be commercial animals. We have to think commercially. Otherwise, we couldn't interact sensibly with the small, medium enterprises who are our clients. We have to talk their language. We have to understand their drivers. We have to know that actually paying the invoices on Thursday is probably their 2 o'clock in the morning moment. And that's absolutely vital that we know that. and that we appreciate the situation that they're in and their needs and wants and desires and ambitions. The second thing I say is that we are impartial, and that's what gets us in front of the customer. But we're not neutral, we're on their side. We are there to be their advocate at every level of the process and every level of the business life cycle, putting their views, making sure that they're exposed to you so that you understand them, and also that they understand you, because it's a two-way street. It's absolutely vital. So we're commercial animals in government service, and we're impartial but not neutral. We're on the side of the business.
Brilliant. Now, Sir Alan, there was a reshuffle on the 5th of June in government, and it was announced by the Prime Minister that he was bringing you in to be an advisor to the government. You were initially called the Enterprise Czar, and by about lunchtime you were the Enterprise Champion. But, I mean, what's it all about? What are you really going to do?
Well, basically, it's going to review what the government does at the moment for small to medium-sized businesses, and also to review what the banks are up to, I suppose. Right. And I'd like to make it clear so far that I've only visited one of these enterprises, first of all, and I've only had meetings with about 3 of the banks. It's very, very easy, is it not, for people to blame banks for everything. You've always got to have a scapegoat. It used to be when the post office went on strike, you blamed the fact that you couldn't pay your bills because the cheques were in the post. So I'm not forming any opinion at the moment that the banks are the culprits or whatever, because from what I've seen in the short term, they're starting to lend again to the businesses. But one has to remember that it is their money, the bank's money. Yeah,
and their businesses.
And you know, we all seem to forget that, as if you know, people have a divine right to have it. And in order to get that money, the bank want to, you know, actually go through a certain kind of criteria of checking whether the person or the enterprise that they're lending to is a worthy cause. So if you can imagine, on one side of the coin you've got the banks, on the other side of the coin you've got some of the businesses that say you represent, you know, who have some problems. And as you said earlier on, the 99% of the businesses in this country are small to medium-sized businesses. They employ over 50% of the population. There's, you know, danger that people sometimes think that the large giant companies such as Shell or whatever, albeit they're very important, are the bigger employers, but they're not. The biggest employers are these small companies. And we're having a rough time at the moment. So I've been asked to come in, have a look at this. I'm about, you know, two weeks in the job, and I've got a lot to actually absorb before I start waffling my advice back to whoever wants to listen to it. But it is advice. That's all I can do is to look at the current situations out there and advise on any improvements or endorse anything which is quite good. You know, people tend to think that because the government has done something, any government that is, that it's got to be wrong, and not necessarily. You know, you can send out a search party to try and interrogate and punch holes in certain things, and you find that actually you're wasting your time because it's not. It's quite good, maybe. So that's what I'm up to.
Okay. I mean, there's this other side of enterprise promotion that's about kind of the culture and getting young people engaged in entrepreneurship. We've done quite a lot over probably 6-ish years to do that. And yeah, outside I saw a stand for the National Enterprise Academy that Peter Jones has co-funded with government. I mean, do you think there's a place for that? Because I don't know you, but I mean, I'd have thought you'd sort of say, oh, well, you know, the University of Knox is what matters, and get out there and get into business and learn it that way. Can you learn it?
I think the thing is, no, you can't go to Boots and buy a bottle of entrepreneurial tablets or something like that. That is something that, you know, it's got to be born into you in the same way as being a concert pianist is born into somebody. You could stick me in a room somewhere with someone for a year who will teach me to play the piano. I might be able to roll out the barrel on it after a year. Would I ever be able to go to the Royal Albert Hall and play, a concert, a piano concerto? No. And it's the same when you talk about entrepreneurs and all that stuff. What annoys me most is sometimes in an audience of business people that I meet from time to time, where we throw open questions to the floor, somebody stands up and says, hello, Sir Alan, I'm an entrepreneur from Hackney or whatever. It really annoys me, because you should not call yourself an entrepreneur. It should be something that someone else observes. But there is a necessity to stimulate enterprise in young people. There's no question of it, because it does exist there, right? And I wouldn't be giving too much away now, and I thank you for blocking any kind of questions on The Apprentice, but I will pick up on the fact that we have publicised that we will be doing a junior version of The Apprentice next year, and we are actually auditioning at this very moment in time 16 and 17-year-old applicants. Yeah,
and I for me then.
And I happened to pop in and get a status on some of the 26,000 that applied.
What?
Yeah, and it's fair to say that in the course of the last 3 weeks, I've taken a little bit of a whacking from our friends in the media for some reason or other, so I haven't been feeling at the top of my game. But going and seeing what I saw in the last day is really inspiring. Yeah. Some of these 16-year-olds, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, focused young women and men. Because, you see, at the end of the day, these are the ones that we're going to have to rely upon. These are the ones that are going to be the basis of the economy of the country in another 20 years' time, when hopefully we're walking around smelling the roses somewhere in the park. But, very, very important to inspire entrepreneurial spirit or enterprise amongst young people. Not everyone. I mean, I've had Q&As like this for the past 10 years throughout virtually every university in the country and lots of schools. And I tell the young people there that not everyone is going to be a Richard Branson or a Philip Green or indeed even an Alan Sugar. But that doesn't mean that, like your father, he had a shop in Garrett Lane, salt of the earth type of people that employed how many eventually in that shop?
4.
4 people. There you are. Well, we need more of that. We need more of that here, and that's the message we would like to send out. And I know Peter Jones is doing quite a good job on that basis.
He is, as are many of the dragons. Now, this session is titled "Think Big About Policy, Think Small First." The Think Small First slogan came up quite a while back, and the idea was to recognise that, big businesses can cope with lots of stuff. They can cope with regulation. They've got HR managers and all the rest of it. Small businesses don't. What is it? I mean, you weren't a small business for very long, I presume. I was. Fortunately, I would add, in an era where regulation wasn't so rife as it is at the moment, because. You have to think small. You do have to think small, and that's where my business started. I started on my own, these people, the people that I referred to earlier on, these companies that employ 50% of the nation's population are small businesses, really. And I did mention earlier on that the likes of Shell, and no matter how important they are, of course they're important, and British Gas or whatever they call themselves now are large employers. It is the small ones that are important. But starting small, you have to start small. I mean, from a sort of regulating point of view, though, I mean, what's the way in which government gets in the way of small businesses? You see, what's the pain? I mean, the thing is that regulation, as far as I'm concerned, is merely another hurdle to overcome in a business, right? It's not something.
that you should use to moan about. Because, for example, I spent 40 years in the electronics industry. I started making stuff in a small factory when the mains cable that came out the back of the unit was secured by simply tying a knot in it, and that's how you made stuff, right? Then came a regulation that it had to be, ground down and earthed down tightly and blah, 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 and that, of course, applied extra cost and all that stuff. And then came a regulation that said, no, we don't trust you actually, so you need to have a BS 415 certificate, and that will only be granted by Fred Jobsworth down the road there, and that would take about 2 months and all that. And I'm not going to bother to do that. It's not mandatory. It's not the law. But then you come against your customers who say, well, we're not buying that thing unless it's got the certificate. Yeah. So these are kind of like, if you imagine like a race, a hurdle. What's the race where all their horses jump over? Is it the Derby
Grand
or
National?
The Grand National. You imagine it's like,
if you
imagine it's the Grand National. It's just another hurdle that's put in the way. In order to remain in business, you have to overcome them. Yeah. Some of them are very good. The examples that I gave just now of the electrical safety, of course, they were quite good. We had to clean up effectively lethal equipment that could have killed people in the marketplace. Other regulations that came in afterwards was to do with like radiation from items like this that doesn't interfere with other parts of all that stuff. And now we're getting down to the green stuff and all that recycling thing, and it is a pain in the arse, but it's not for us to argue with, is it? Really, we just get on with it. And I mean, it does in some cases increase the price to consumers, but I guess it's the small price one has to pay. But I think the problem with regulation for small startups is very much dependent on the business that they're in. If they're let's take the web designer guy, for example. I mean, he's not actually producing a product which sells in a shop. He's providing a service. So as far as he's concerned, in that particular example, he don't have to concern himself with not copying intellectual property and things like that, which are not regulations, they're actually laws. But if say, a young lady wanted to start up making fairy cakes and then really wanted to resell them to retailers, she would have to be very aware of things like the content packaging on the contents on there, the calorific values that have to be printed, the all health and safety type of aspects, which could be, I suppose, a little bit onerous to a startup. Right, and where do you go and get that information from? Business Link can give you that information. They can give you that information. But the point I'm making is, Bob, is that you start in that little business, maybe in your own kitchen at home, and you're going to bang out 1,000 fairy cakes a week and hopefully sell it to a nucleus of 20 or 30 kind of coffee shops in the area. But in order to comply strictly to the regulations and the rules of particular printing and packing that you have to have it on, would make that exercise that I just described actually not possible. It would make it not possible because of the printing and all that type of stuff. So it's a bit of a cottage industry there, which you can't. When you go to the next step to try and professionalise it a bit more, you're in for big costs. And it's a chicken and egg situation. She's selling to 10 coffee shops. She now wants to sell to Waitrose. And the difference, that giant leap, is where regulation is holding people back a bit.
Okay. So, I'm guessing that a lot of you have got questions that you want to ask. Yeah. Before we get into Q&A, just a quick straw poll. How many people here are kind of working in, I don't know, agencies, delivery agencies around the country? Cool. And how many people are kind of Whitehall policy wonks? There we go, that's good. So that gives us a feel. can I call, I mean, let's get some questions going. I'm going to take 3 at a time. So we've got one here, one here, and one here in the middle, and then we'll go left, and then we'll go right, and then we'll see how we get on. So I want name, I want organisation you work for, and then the questions are obviously for both panellists.
Natalie Coulon.
Sorry, can't hear you. Try again.
Natalie Coulon, Government Office for the East of England. Except pointing to Business Link, which we already do, how else can government support local authorities, support small businesses?
Okay.
Wendy Violentano from Department for Work and Pensions.
DWP.
Just interested in going back to the young people issue. There are a lot of good things going on in terms of encouraging young entrepreneurs, but what I wonder is what advice you could give us in getting young people to see SMEs as potential employers rather than starting up their own small businesses, because I think we miss a trick there in
All
terms
going to
of
work for a
that
business
sector
company.
for employment opportunities.
Okay, and then here.
I'm not a civil servant. I
No.
work for an executive recruitment company, Hoggett Bowes. My name is Tim Dramman, and Martin's been a client of mine, in fact.
Yeah.
What is your view, Sir Alan, about how easy or difficult it is for small businesses to actually do business with government? My observation, having done so for quite a long time, and I also do a lot of work with the private sector as well, is that it's always been difficult and it's getting a lot worse. If you are now seeking to do business with government, you often have to answer all sorts of questions, which frankly have absolutely nothing to do with your capability to deliver the service the client wants at a cost they're willing to pay. And that is very, very onerous indeed for SMEs.
You want me to answer that one? Yeah, I think the thing is that government as a customer is a great customer to have. It's going to be difficult to break your way in there, but then I think once you're in, you kind of got a cash cow for life, really. Yeah. Now,
As long as they pay you.
well, so the thing is that this is one of these, you know, this is like Beecher's Brook, is it? Whatever it is.
Canal
yeah.
turn.
Yeah, the canal turn.
I can see we need
mean,
to take you to Aintree next year.
yeah. I mean, look, small businesses, okay, tendering for the right to be able to supply government is tough. I agree.
It is.
But I'll tell you what, it's good. Because I'll tell you something, I've got a lot of businesses that attempt to sell to government, and the good news is that it is a very fair system, right? And anybody that implies that favours are being done for this person or that is an absolute total nonsense, right? Total nonsense, because if you have to, as you would know,